Good morning. My name is Pam Traylor, and I am here with Jennifer Albright to present part two of PPBIS. If you can recall, we went over part one back in October, which focused on relationships and environments from tier one. Today, we will focus mainly on tier two. Our agenda today is to recap what PPBIS stands for. And again, majority of our training will be about tier two, which is targeted social and emotional supports. And then at the end, we will touch on tier three, which is intensive interventions.
If you all remember having seen this before, we asked the question, what is positive behavior interventions and supports, PBIS? It is an implementation framework for maximizing the selection of and use of evidence-based practices in the area of prevention and intervention along a multi-tiered continuum that supports academic, social, emotional, and behavioral supports of all students. PPBIS is the preschool version. In part one, we focused on the bottom three tiers. Today, we're going to focus on the green tier of targeted social emotional supports and just touch on tier three, which is the intensive intervention. Tier two, the area focused on targeted social emotional supports. It's the prevention level, which represents practices that are targeted social emotional strategies to prevent the problems. This prevention includes the provision of targeted supports to children who are at risk for challenging behaviors. We all need support. However, children have fewer and less developed coping skills, so they need more support from others. Remember, if they don't get support from us, they're going to develop challenging behaviors. The first thing we're going to talk about is teachable moments. Those are spontaneous or unexpected opportunities in the classroom for a teacher to share new information or experiences with his or her students. It's not planned for, and the teacher must recognize the opportunity when it occurs, since the moment usually comes up out of interest or curiosity of the students. For example, if a teacher is sitting in with students in the block area and a student comes up and knocks down the structure another child built, this is an opportunity to teach some social skills and interventions. Another example is when a child is struggling to use scissors correctly, then gets upset and throws the scissors on the floor. It's an opportunity to teach how to calm and what strategies to do when you're frustrated. We want to focus more on what to do than what not to do. Instead of saying, stop leaving toys out when you leave a center, which is what not to do, you would focus on what you want the student to do. For example, when you're finished with playing with the toys, make sure you put the toys back in the containers. This isn't new information, it's just a good reminder. It's difficult to remember in the heat of the moment, and sometimes we will react impulsively. Children may not remember what to do, so we can offer them a suggestion. There are various stages of learning. The first one, show and tell, where students are learning new skills. We would explain what we want them to do and demonstrate what we would want them to do. We could give them examples and non-examples, and we could encourage them. For example, we have our second steps lessons, and we can explain what angry means and what it looks like on our faces, and then show how to calm ourselves when we get angry. Practice makes perfect. You can use this, we teach the students to use a skill without a prompt. We would link the skill to other skills. We would offer them opportunities to practice the skill, and then we would elaborate on that skill. We would role play, pretending to be angry, and then doing things to block them or taking them to the block area. And then if someone knocks over their creation, that they could use some breathing strategies. They could use some of the conscious discipline strategies that we might have learned in our classrooms. And then we get to you got it, which is applying new skills, applying the skills in new concepts. If a child wants to play in blocks, but the blocks is full and they get mad, what can they do? If they do the breathing techniques because they have learned this as a skill in other times of their classroom, then we can say to them, "You got it," and praise them for applying those skills. Promoting social development of all the children in the class. You would teach the whole class during circle time, centers, small groups, and then we would also talk to families about practicing these skills at home. You also can focus on individual skill instruction, which could be embedded. It could be in the form of prompting and modeling with individual students. We remember that if a child didn't know how to read, we would teach them. And if a child didn't know how to multiply, we would teach them. But if a child doesn't know how to behave, what do? We need to remember to teach rather than punish. Friendship skills that we learn in preschool. Harvard did a study that showed that having solid friendships helps to promote brain health in children. Children with strong friendship skills are the ones who would organize play schemes, share, take turns, help their peers, show affection, compliment others, and they do begin to start empathizing with the other students in their classroom. Here are some tips for promoting social interactions. You can arrange the materials in the classroom to help promote interaction. You can create opportunities for children to interact through role playing, through partnering in group projects, or through your center activities that you would set up. We could promote looking at each other when they're talking and playing. We would remind students to use other students' names and or some physical contact. Obviously, depending on how COVID goes, we would have to be flexible with that. We can ask a child by name if they would like to play. We can encourage their children to tap another peer on the shoulder and ask, "Would you like to play with me?" We can give children the words and phrases to say, demonstrate for them how to ask their classmates to play with them, and use the word friends intentionally when talking about students. There are various strategies you can use in your classroom to teach friendship skills. You can use modeling, you can use puppets, songs, finger plays, games both in the classroom and on the playground, books that teach friendship skills, pair students intentionally. Maybe a student who needs to learn some more friendship skills could be paired with someone who has a solid hold on that. You can do friendship art projects. You can have music and movement partners. You can use social stories. Use your conscious discipline kindness tree. And of course, encouragement. You want to embed those conscious discipline strategies in everyday activities and use your second steps lessons. Those are both parts of your daily schedule and routine.
So our next stage is identifying feelings and enhancing emotional literacy. We're going to look at what emotional literacy is and ways to teach it, what self-regulation is and strategies to use, how to problem solve using Tucker Turtle, and why we would use social stories. So what is emotional literacy? Emotional literacy is the ability to identify, understand, and express emotions in a healthy way. For identifying feelings, we are going to teach children how to recognize and relate to feelings of others, to recognize anger in oneself and in others, to understand appropriate ways to express anger, learn how to calm down, and to recognize our feelings and use self-regulation. We can teach how to identify feelings through direct and indirect teaching. Direct teaching is planned out lessons to teach a concept. For instance, second step that we can use words beyond things like happy or sad or mad and use words like disappointed, frustrated, those kinds of words that help and is a direct teaching method. We can have a calm down area, but this must be taught how to use before a situation arises. And you can do that by role playing or modeling over and over again. That way, when something happens, they will know how to use the calm down area. A proud area is where children have work displayed that they are proud of, or pictures, like a picture of them beside a structure that they built in blocks that might be put in the proud area for them to show others. Embedded lessons can be like a question of the day. How would you feel if you lost your favorite toy? And the answers might be worried, angry, bored, sad, and they might put their name or picture under that word, and you can talk about what that might feel like. Some games that we can use would be like feeling wheels or feelings dice or the feelings match game. And we also talked about the mirror game in part 1 of PPBIS. Check-ins is where teachers and children can check in each morning by choosing a feeling face that best describes their state and putting it next to their name. If you notice that a child has put a face like a sad or angry face next to their name, that is your opportunity to go over and talk to them and ask them what's going on, and help them with strategies to feel better. And they can go over and change their faces throughout the day if they need to. In indirect teaching, we want to point out things like, oh, look at what she just made in blocks. She must feel really proud, and talking about that word. We can get ideas from books, like when we're reading a book and something happens to a character, you can teach the emotion of that character. For instance, in our last theme, I listened to a teacher read a story, and it talked about an animal that was basking in the sun. So if she stopped for a minute and talked about, how do you think that animal feels if they're basking in the sun? They may feel relaxed, they may feel calm. Those are types of times that we can teach those words and give them that emotional literacy. And then obviously we can model. Next is self-regulation, which is controlling anger and impulse. We can recognize that anger can interfere with our problem solving. It can even interfere as adults. Learning how to recognize anger in oneself and in others. Learning how to calm down, and understanding appropriate ways to express our anger. So self-regulation is, we can teach some strategies. We can model staying calm and point it out. Like today I came to work this morning and there was so much traffic and I was late getting here, and I felt so worried that I was going to get in trouble for being late, or that you guys wouldn't have me in front of you. And so I had to stop and take 3 deep breaths to calm myself down. So that's something I could talk to the kids about, to give them an example. I can prepare children to handle disappointment. Like if it's raining outside and they really want to go out for recess, but we can't. So I can prepare them. And then I can recognize and comment when children remain calm. So I know that Susie took your pink marker that you really wanted to use, but I love how you used the breathing technique and you calmed yourself down and then politely asked for it back. Another thing is strategies that we can use for self-regulation are deep breathing strategies, Tucker the turtle, which we will hit on in just a second, and utilizing social stories. You want to teach these techniques before children get upset. So you want to practice these over and over so children know what to do when they get upset. So here are some deep breathing techniques. So you have obviously the conscious discipline breathing techniques that a lot of people are using that we see even virtually. You have elbows, belly breathes. You have the calming down where you would smell the flower, blow out the candle, the pinwheel technique, looking at the relaxation thermometer, and also looking at Tucker the turtle. So Tucker the turtle, the steps for calming down is step one, you're going to recognize your feelings. Recognize that you're feeling a certain way, that I'm feeling angry. That's what I'm feeling right now. And to stop my body from doing something that I could hurt myself or someone else. You're going to tuck yourself inside your shell and you might demonstrate how that would happen. And you're going to take 3 deep breaths while you're in your shell. And then when you come out, you're going to be calm and think of a solution. When you're problem solving using Tucker Turtle, you're going to teach them those problem solving steps like the ones I just used, and have them think about when you came up with a solution, was your solution safe for you and everyone in the classroom? Was it fair for you and the other person involved or other people involved? Does it provide good feelings for all? Does it make everyone feel happy? And to teach them that solutions sometimes have consequences that we have to also live with, just like the way we react to things. And then use problem solving visuals in your classroom and refer to them often. Even taking a child over to those areas and teaching and going over and modeling those things over and over again so that it becomes something that they know how to do. Next, we have social stories. Social stories are scripted stories for social situations that help children understand social interactions, situations, expectations, social cues, and/or social rules. So, when would I use a social story? I would use it to develop self-care skills, social skills, and/or academic skills. I may use it to help someone understand how others might behave or respond in a particular situation, help others understand the perspective of an autistic person and why they respond or behave in a certain way, to help a person cope with changes to routine or unexpected distressing events, to provide positive feedback to a person about an area of strength or achievement in order to develop self-esteem, and as a behavioral strategy. So, what to do when you are angry. Next, we want to talk about how we can connect with families. So, this is our Power It Up with Parents. So, you might want to host some events in your classroom where families can see and learn how to teach social emotional skills at home. So, we have the family fun events that we do with our families sometimes, and we can do those family fun nights. Teaching social emotional skills, talking about the conscious discipline skills and giving them those techniques and strategies to use at home, to show them and give them some examples of social stories that they could also use at home, so that we are partnering together, and that the child knows that if they react a certain way at school, this is going to happen. These are the things that we're going to do. And those same things are happening at home. So it's very consistent for them. We can also partner with families to teach children targeted social emotional skills. So for instance, I could send a letter home to a parent and dear whatever the parent's name is. So Jamal did a great job handling frustration and not getting angry when we ran out of his favorite cookie at snack. Instead of getting angry, he took 3 deep breaths and decided he would try one of those other types of cookies. It was a great solution. You can help Jamal at home by asking him what he did at school today when we ran out of his favorite cookie. Ask him how he calmed down. Comment on what a great job he did, and tell him that you hope he will do that again when he gets frustrated about something. So you are making sure that you're letting the parents know and celebrating that at home as well as in the classroom. You can also send homework assignments home with children to help families guide their child. For instance, if you teach Tucker turtle techniques at school, send home turtle materials to make one of those at home as a visual for them when they get upset at home. Send home some of those breathing techniques to practice at home from conscious discipline. Give them the resource of the Elmo breathing, any of those, the blowing out the candle and smelling the flower. All of those things are great things they can do as at home as well, but give them the visual so that they can practice that. You can do buddy work and have conversations about how it went. So they can do something together. The families can do something together with their children and have a conversation about how they think that went together. For instance, making cookies together, working it out together and having a conversation. Well, how do you think that went? Do you think that was hard? Do you think that was easy? Do you think you could do that alone, or do you need someone to work with you to do something like that? So those are great conversations for families to have. And we want to provide families with materials and information for teaching social emotional skills. For instance, in our second step, we have those home links that we want to make sure we're sending those home to families to let them know what we're working on at school so that they can also emphasize those same skills at home. There's also challengingbehavior.org website that gives some great strategies as well. And then in tier 3, we're just going to hit on this just briefly. This is your intensive intervention. So when all other strategies and support hasn't worked and the child needs individualized support plans because of intense chronic behavior challenges, that's when we're going to move to a positive behavior support plan, which is an approach for developing an understanding of why the child has the challenging behavior and teaching the child new skills to replace that challenging behavior. So those are usually about 5% of the kids that are in your classroom. So most, you're teaching some strategies to prevent any of the challenging behaviors in the tier 2, which we talked about today. So all of the strategies we gave to you can be done through whole group instruction, small group instruction, one-on-one, modeling. All of those things can happen so that you're teaching them those skills to be able to handle situations so that it doesn't go into a challenging behavior. But sometimes we have those children who have those chronic behavior challenges, and we need to move to a tier 3 and replace those challenging behaviors with new skills. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope you've gained some strategies to use in your classrooms from this training. We hope you all have a great rest of your day.